Psalm 119, verse 65. Tov asita im avdecha, Adonai kidvarecha. So we begin today with the tet section of Psalm 119. So in this acrostic, the next 8 verses are going to begin with a tet. And I think that's very partially the reason that we have the word tov beginning here. So if we look here, we have good, you have done. This is our call perfect 2ms. Notice the ta ending. The verbal root is asa, and notice that that third hey gets replaced with the yod. So very common there. A pattern you can continue to see in the third hey verbs, especially in the perfect, asita. So we have good, you have done, and that sounds a little bit like Yoda talk to us. So we would turn this around and say, you have done good, or you have done well with, there's the preposition with your servant. This would be the word eved, and notice again in those segulets that eved becomes av. That's very common and okay. And then we get the 2ms suffix on the singular noun, your servant. You have done well with your servant. Next, we get Adonai, standing alone. This accent mark here is the revia mugrash. It's the big revia, I guess you could say. And it functions very much like the tifchad would in prose. So it does mark this off a little bit. I'm going to try to put a dotted line there. So we would say something like, O Lord, here in that vocative sense. And then next we get the kaf preposition, the 2ms suffix, and then we get davar. So we have according to your word, according to your word. And I've intentionally put these on 2 lines, these 2 lines separately. This did all fit on the screen, but I put it on 2 lines separately because one way you could read this is to see that the concept of you have done well, O Lord, you have done well, O Lord, could be repeated in this second line, but it is left out, which is a pretty common concept we call like a null phrase or a null clause, where it is in parallelism repeated. So you could read this with this vocative O Lord something like this: you have done well with your servant. O Lord, you have done well according to your word. Now, that's an interpretive decision that you would have to make, but it is one way that you could see the way these accents are marked, with the athnach being the biggest break in the sentence, and then having this revia mugrash setting off the vocative.